I've never been one to believe in karma, but after what I've been through, I'm starting to think otherwise. It all began when I got involved with someone else, despite being married. Looking back, I was a completely different person. I was blind to the good things I had, chasing after what I thought was missing. My wife and I got married right after college. She wasn't the type to turn heads, but there was a genuine warmth about her. We struggled together in those early days, but as my career in real estate took off, our lives changed dramatically. We went from barely making rent to living in a nice suburban home. That's when Daisy came into my life. Daisy was everything my wife wasn't: vibrant, outgoing, and irresistibly attractive. My affair with her made me grow distant from my wife, to the point where I even considered divorce. But despite my harsh treatment and constant arguments, my wife refused to leave, citing our daughter's well-being as her main concern. One night, after an argument that got physical, things went too far. In a drunken rage, fueled by Daisy's complaints about being the other woman, and my frustration with my wife's refusal to divorce, I lost all control. The altercation with my wife ended in tragedy, and in a panic, I made the horrific decision to hide her body within the walls of our house. A method I recalled from some grim crime story. The guilt ate at me, but I was too deep into my lie, telling everyone she had left me. Months passed, and I married Daisy. We were soon expecting twins. However, our happiness was short-lived. Our twins' birth was followed by a tragic accident that took their lives, an incident that eerily mirrored the violence from that fateful night. As if cursed, our next pregnancy also ended in heartbreak, with our newborn twins not surviving childbirth due to a rare complication. But nothing prepared me for what came next. When Daisy got pregnant again, our twins were born with severe health issues. One with a profound brain disorder, the other born blind. Holding my daughters, I couldn't help but face the reality of my past actions. One day, as I sat near the wall where I had hidden my first wife and daughter, holding my sick children, the most unnatural thing happened. My daughter, despite her condition, smiled at me and spoke in a way that seemed impossible given her condition. "Daddy, are you going to hide us in the wall too?" I don't know if it was guilt playing tricks on my mind or something more profound, but at that moment I broke down. The realization of what my actions had brought upon all of us was overwhelming. I'm sharing this story, not seeking forgiveness or pity. I guess I just want to warn others about the consequences of their actions. Violence, deceit, infidelity, they don't just hurt the people involved, they can curse you in ways you can't imagine. What started as an affair ended in a chain of tragedies. So here I am, a broken man filled with regret, wondering if I'll ever escape the shadow of my past decisions. If you're on the verge of making a choice you know in your heart is wrong, remember my story. The price of such actions is far higher than you can ever anticipate. I've been lurking around here for a while, reading all your spooky stories, and finally worked up the nerve to share one of mine. It's not exactly a ghost story, but it sure scared the hell out of me and still gives me chills when I think about it. So, my twin sister Laura and I have always been super close, the kind of twins you read about who finish each other's sentences and can almost read each other's minds. We're mirror twins. My cowlick is on the right side, hers on the left, and while I'm right-handed, she's a lefty. Even though we've got those differences, people mix us up all the time. We went our separate ways for college, me sticking closer to home, while Laura went out of state. She was always the more outgoing one, became quite popular, and went through a series of high-profile relationships. I, on the other hand, was more of an introvert, had a few close friends, and eventually settled down with my high school sweetheart. Despite the distance, Laura and I would still know if something was up with the other. If she was feeling down, I'd sense it and give her a call, and vice versa. It was our thing, a twin thing, you know. Things took a dark turn when Laura got involved with this guy, Dan, who turned out to be bad news. Their relationship was rocky, and eventually she wanted out. He didn't take it well. I kept feeling this sense of dread, but couldn't put my finger on why. One night, I had this intense nightmare where Dan was attacking Laura. It felt so real that I woke up in a panic and, without thinking, called the police in Laura's city, insisting they check on her. Turns out, my nightmare wasn't so far from the truth. Laura was found in her apartment, hurt but alive, Dan having broken in and attacked her. The police managed to arrest Dan, thanks to my call, and Laura was rushed to the hospital. She made a full recovery, thank God, but that experience left a scar on both of us. Dan was put away for attempted murder, and Laura moved back closer to family. Fast forward a few months, and weird stuff started happening around the house. I'd catch glimpses of a shadow or reflection that didn't match up with my own movements. At first, I chalked it up to stress and fatigue, but then my husband started noticing it too. He'd joke about it, saying things like, "Guess we got a ghost who's a fan of yours, keeps staring at you through the mirror." One day, I finally faced my fear and stood in front of our full-length mirror during the day, determined to confront whatever was playing tricks on me. But nothing happened, no shadows or mismatched reflections. It was just me looking at Ted one out and stressed. Laura and I talked about it, trying to figure out what was going on. We wondered if it was some sort of delayed traumatic response to her near miss with Dan, a way for our minds to process the fear and anxiety that we hadn't fully dealt with. In the end, we never truly figured it out. The reflections and shadows stopped as suddenly as they started. Laura joked that maybe our twin connection was just on the fritz for a while. I'm not completely sure I buy that, but I'm grateful things are back to normal. Still, every so often, when I look in the mirror, I can't help but pause, wondering if I'll see something out of the ordinary staring back. So yeah, not your typical horror story, but it was real and terrifying in its own way. Thanks for letting me share. I just had to share this unnerving experience that really shook my community, and honestly, it's something that's been sitting heavy with me for a while. Let's dive into a cautionary tale of how jealousy and betrayal among friends can lead to tragic consequences. So, I have this family friend, Emily, whose life story is just something straight out of a movie, but for all the wrong reasons. Emily grew up in a well-to-do family. Both of her parents had respectable jobs and they lived in this pretty upscale neighborhood. She was their only child, and needless to say, she was doted on pretty heavily. Growing up, Emily was inseparable from her childhood friend Sarah. They went to the same schools, hung out all the time, typical best friend stuff. After college, Emily landed a great job at a multinational corporation, while Sarah ended up teaching at a local private school. Despite their differing paths, they stayed close. Their friendship was a beacon of purity. However, things took a dark turn once Emily got engaged. She had met this guy, Mikhail, who was just as well off and educated as she was. They hit it off right away and decided to tie the knot after dating for a bit. Sarah was Emily's maid of honor. It seemed like a picture-perfect scenario. However, not long after Emily and Michael got married, Michael came home one day with a divorce agreement. He confronted Emily, claiming he'd uncovered her reckless past, nightlife, drinking, you name it. And who was behind the revelation? Sarah. She had gone to Michael under the guise of catching up and spilled everything about Emily's past, including showing him photos from their clubbing days. Betrayed by her best friend, Emily was devastated. Soon after, her marriage dissolved, and the stress of it all led her to lose her job. The spiral didn't stop there. Emily fell into a deep depression. Her mental health deteriorated, and she became a shadow of her former self. When Emily's parents confronted Sarah, expecting remorse or an apology, they were met with mockery and gloating. This all but destroyed the family's relationship with Sarah. But karma has a way of coming around. Sarah, who had somehow managed to climb the social ladder by marrying a wealthy parent from her school, experienced a string of tragic events post-marriage that left her and many others convinced that her actions towards Emily had somehow cursed her own life. First, her infant son passed away under mysterious circumstances, a rare condition that doctors declared as sudden acute respiratory syndrome. And then in a heartbreaking accident, one of her twins suffocated during the night when she accidentally fell asleep feeding them. Following these tragedies, Sarah's mental health spiraled out of control. She was institutionalized after a dangerous outburst towards a relative's child, who eerily predicted the death of her remaining twin. Her husband eventually left her, refusing to offer any support due to her negligence, leading to their sons' deaths. As for Emily, she managed to rebuild her life, albeit far from the ruins of her past relationships. Last I heard, she moved overseas, focusing on her recovery and work, staying single and far away from the drama that tore her life apart. This tale has served as a grim reminder for me and my friends. Jealousy can poison the purest of friendships, leading to actions we can never take back. It's a real test of character to genuinely wish well for those we claim to care about. In Emily and Sarah's story, the consequences of failing that test were disastrously real. Let's not forget, the true character is shown not by how we deal with our own successes, but by how we handle the successes of others.